Hello, welcome back. In today's episode of books, I'm going to be talking of Botany for Bonsai. This is Mark Ticklew's of Marky Bonsai. Well, if you're going to make it your bonsais to grow healthily and look their very best, you've got to understand what makes your bonsai tick. And at the end of the day, it is a plant. So understanding botany and especially botany for bonsai is an important aspect of growing your bonsai successfully. Unfortunately, too many bonsai beginners ignore it, and it leads to all sorts of unnecessary problems and hiccups that could easily be avoided. For a little bit of investment in your time and in even less amount of investment in money, you will find that your trees multiply and flourish. To start off with, you have to understand some of the horticultural aspects of bonsai, and that kind of includes understanding a little bit about plant growth and stuff like that, where they can be grown, whether the plants like to be in the shade or in the heat. Now, the books that I started off with were the Principle of Horticulture. I was trying to do an RHS level 2 in horticulture, and these are the books that I was prescribed to, and I found them very helpful. And they were a great guide to anybody starting off in the world of horticulture and growing plants, because at the end of the day, you've got to understand your plant bonsai or your bonsai plant to be able to make it look its best. And this book, the fourth edition of Horticulture, Principles and Practice by George Acquaah, is a great book, just as much as the Principles of Horticulture, 5th edition by C.R. Adams et al. And they're easy, lightweight reading, and you'll find them quite informative in your journey on understanding plants and how to deal with them. This book, Botany for Gardeners, 3rd edition, is a great introduction into what gardeners and basically bonsai people need to know from the botany aspects of it. And if you're not interested in diving deep into the horticultural principles of it, at least get hold of this Botany for Gardeners book. It'll get you started in the right way. I think the next aspect of growing bonsais is to be able to propagate them and make them grow. And I found this book by Plant Propagation by RHS a pretty good introduction, and Alan Toggood's Propagation too were excellent in their presentation. These are a great guide to create your own stock material for bonsais. Often you go and buy a decent maple or whatever else, and you are tempted to try and replicate them, and it helps understanding thoroughly how to go about propagating them. You then have pruning and training. Now, bonsai pruning is quite different, but having said that, this book and its extensive guide on the various plants and species inside and when to prune them and how to prune them is an excellent guide in helping you work out how to, at least what time and schedule to keep to pruning your bonsai, especially if you're unsure of the species that you have. In the earlier videos, I talked to you about looking at the bonsai guides to understand more about the species. But often, especially in areas where the bonsais haven't developed too well, you'd find that there's not enough information out there for how to prune them. So a book like this is a great feature on how to understand a little bit more about your plants and your bonsai. The thing about bonsai and moving, or think about anything, if you want to get it to the next level of creativity, is understanding in detail what makes that subject tick. And in terms of bonsais, you got to understand the horticultural and botanical parts of it. At the end of the day, it is a plant, and getting to know your plants well will help you get the most out of your bonsais in terms of keeping it alive, in terms of making it grow faster, in terms of making it grow healthier, in terms of being able to fight off pest and disease, and in terms of making it into a mature bonsai really, really fast. So that is something that you may need to know. Now, one of the other things that you need to work on is pest and disease. Now, when you're starting off, pest and disease can be really, really daunting, because often you don't really know what the signs are, what's happening to your trees, and you have to go investigating. Then you'll see, more often than not, you'll see some pest or diseases is attacking your tree. Now, in general, if your plant is healthy, pest and disease is not an issue, because a bug will land on the tree, it'll attack the tree, and the tree will defend itself by creating toxins. But if the tree is weak in any form or shape, then sometimes it's not able to defend itself. Which very much like a human being, if you're under the weather or not healthy, you are not able to fight off all your colds and the disease that you're likely to see. So it is important to be able to respond to the pest and disease that is happening around your tree. And this book deals with a lot of native UK and in that sense European too, because lots of the trees have been naturalized out here are European. It will help you identify the pest, the tree that the pest gets commonly, or rather the pest that attacks the trees commonly, and how to go about defending them. It goes into a bit of detail, so sometimes it's not something that you need to read as a book, but definitely have it around as a reference to be able to identify the pests that are on the tree and the action to take. While this book, the focus is primarily on dealing with forest or garden trees, the pests are the same on your bonsai trees too. You may fight it slightly differently, but in general, once you identify the pest, you can deal with it relatively easy enough. Now, on most big trees, often the pests are not an issue, but on a bonsai, you really have to tackle them and deal with them. Often they are as easily as dealing with them physically. So you sometimes just blast it away with a jet of water, or just rub it off with your hand or a toothbrush. So whichever way you go with it, looking at what the pest on the tree is and understanding what it is helps you deal with keeping your bonsai healthy and vibrant. Now, going on to understanding more about your tree and the species that it is, I find this book, Plant Names Simplified, quite helpful. Now, it tries to teach me the Latin pronunciation of things, but most of you have already guessed that I'm terrible at it. Nevertheless, I persevere, but some of you may find it interesting. But if you don't want to chase down Latin names, you may at least get some of these, what I call the tree guides. They will help you in identifying the species that you have, because if you don't understand what the species you have, you will not be able to look after it. So these little guides, bonsai tree guides, are great at helping you identify the species, and there is a key usually at the beginning, which shows you can even identify it by winter species, You can look at the buds on it, and then you can identify that way. Or you can look at it based on the leaf types and use this guide to identify the species. This guide is quite helpful in breaking it down so that you can drill down to the species that you're looking for. I find these books really helpful. And in the earlier stages, when I spent a lot of time trying to figure out what trees I've got, especially since I used to go about collecting trees all around the place, and not being from the UK and Europe, I had quite a challenge recognizing all the trees that were there. And the trouble is that even when you do get a tree, bonsai tends to change the physiology of the leaves and the branches. So sometimes you have to revert to seeing the fruit and the bud and the flowers to actually be able to identify the tree. Nevertheless, these bonsai guides, and this is Colin's tree guide, which is really great, and then you have the Hamlyn equivalent of it, and then you have trees Britain and Europe. You don't need to get all three, but any one of them will help you just as well. Since you're in the UK and in Europe, I would suggest this one, or even the Colin book. Anyway, but that's really how you would go about understanding a little bit about your botany for bonsai. You need to, first of all, remember your bonsai is a plant. So recognizing that it is a plant, you have to understand how it grows, what makes it tick, how water plays its significant role in it, how food moves around on the plant, how sun is used by the plant, how the importance of the positioning of a plant is to it, whether it's sun tolerant or shade tolerant or just likes 100% sun. All those kind of things are important to getting the most out of your bonsai. Otherwise, bonsais can end up being a rather dissatisfying or unsatisfying hobby, and I'm sure that's not what we want to do. Anyway, thank you for watching, and if you did enjoy this, remember to give me a thumbs up, and if you haven't subscribed, please do. And I'm looking forward to seeing you again on the Maki Bonsai channel. Look up my other videos. I think the next one is most probably going to be about bonsai tools, and I'll be talking in as much detail about the tools and how we progress with the tools. Thank you, and bye for now.